the world is going to tokenize itself, not because of tokenization, but because the industries, the blockchain and everything we're building will be the next upgrade. And I have absolutely zero doubts on it.
In the 252nd Block Talks, we speak with Edwin Mata, CEO and co-founder of Brickken, to discuss how to upgrade finance with tokenization. I'm your host, Mauricio Magaldi, and this is BlockDrops, your weekly digest on blockchain for business. These news are not a form of endorsement, sponsorship, or encouragement for consumption and are meant for educational purposes only. All right, everybody. I am here with Edwin Mata, who's going to tell us who he is and what he does with blockchain. Edwin, welcome to BlockTalks.
Hello, Mauricio. Thank you very much for having me. A pleasure to be here for BlockTalks. And yes, I've been involved with blockchain for a while, so let's go all over it.
So what's the superhero or supervillain origin story of you? Were you a blockchain person from, say, coming out of school? Were you doing something else and then you bumped into a friend who was trading Bitcoin in the dark web? What's the story there?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit more boring than that. I'm an M&A lawyer, so by default, it's already quite boring. But the fact is, there was a tech company that hired me for their general counsel, and they got some grants from the government to start testing blockchain technology back in 2018, when there was a lot of testing and very little know-how. Even though the technology was out there for quite some years, there was little bits on that. And yeah, 2018, I stumbled upon this. I heard about Bitcoin before, but I barely paid any attention, unfortunately. And on 2018, I started reading a lot about it, and I was really engaged. And I stumbled upon what I do now, tokenization, upon reading. And 2020, decided to start exploring it more from a founder perspective.
So there is a big arc between you being a lawyer, learning about blockchain for a pilot, and you being a founder and CEO of a blockchain company. So I want us to, you to take us from one to the other, and what happened in between that ultimately led you to co-found a company and take on the hard job of being an entrepreneur, but an even harder job of being an entrepreneur with crypto and blockchain. So what prompted that change from being the lawyer to being the founder?
So here I'm going to say the villain story, because I was working for some guy who I was always engaged in the business side of things. Even though I'm a lawyer, I guess some people like to stick with kind of like, you're a lawyer. Oh, so you only know law. Oh, you're in marketing. Oh, you only know marketing. But nowadays, kind of like everybody can know a lot of things. So I had a conversation once, and he's like telling me, well, this is my company. If you don't like it, I'll make the decisions. And then someday, if you want to make your decision, you take your own company. He was in a bad mood, but that made me think a lot. I remember that day, and I was like, you know what? Challenge accepted. So 2019, I quit. And basically, for a full year, I was trying to accommodate myself as to what should I be building around. COVID hit, and that was the time when I was like, okay, perfect time. I was living in Spain. I couldn't even hit the streets. So I started just building, talking to my fellow founders of today. And the idea was always kind of like fractionalization. And at the beginning, we didn't really know about that much about tokenization or how it was going to be today. But we have an idea. So my main co-founder at the time was in capital markets. I was a lawyer. So we started mixing and having a lot of conversations as to how we can ease the burden of investment in certain opportunities. And we started playing around, then we got tech. And that's kind of like the origin story. So it was because I love technology, blockchain, entrepreneurship, and I got challenged. And now my company is worth more than his when he sold. So I want to send him a message. Hello, you created something that actually worked.
So what was the problem that after your research you found, like, this needs solving? I can't sleep anymore. I need to fix this. So in what circumstance did you run into the problem? And how did you decide that there was a problem worth solving?
Yeah, so it all has to do with, it's not about certainly like the fractional part of things, because if you have a company, you can share one share, right? It was about moving capital. And that was where we stumbled upon some like problems around it. Maybe we should have gone for payments. It would have made more sense with stable coins, but we went for the whole infrastructure of capital moving, not the capital as a product, but the two outcomes, like the sender and the receiver. So that's something that we wanted to solve. For example, I come from Mexico. Remittance payment from United States it's a huge market right now. It's getting easier, but there were fees of charging Western Union like 15% in the sending. Now, in the investment side of things, you want to send a bank transfer of $100 because you're in Brazil and you see a German opportunity. Impossible. Bank transfer wouldn't even go through it. You wouldn't even know where to find the German opportunity. So we started going through all this journey as to who can invest from where, minimum tickets, and the technology. Blockchain was the solver for all of these things. And that's where we thought about it. It's kind of like you can make opportunities worldwide known, and yet you can move capital as simple as possible. Even though Ethereum at the day was gas super high, it didn't matter. We really saw an opportunity there. We decided like the problem was not the capital, which already made the product of itself, stable coins and payments. We wanted to solve the solution between investment opportunities between the issuer and the potential investor. So that's kind of like how we stumbled upon tokenization, which nowadays is real world assets and is well known. But at the beginning of the years, when we started 2020, it was more of a proof of concept. So we really had to go deep into the technology and the use case for it to be worldwide known, because you do say like, oh yeah, you can move capital, but at the beginning of the years, off-ramp, on-ramp was very complicated and very expensive. Banks were not liking you receiving from an exchange money, so you could even get blocked. So there was a lot of things we didn't know back then, but the concept that we thought about it became true. Just like the tools that we built back there evolved drastically.
Starting around COVID, we had a very different regulatory landscape at that point. Flash forward 5-6 years into the future, everyone seems to love crypto. I mean, you and I were at Proof of Talk. The ratio between suits and hoodies has changed dramatically for a crypto event.
Dramatically.
So I can obviously assume that you guys building from that point to now, the actual market actually caught up to you, not the other way around. I mean, you were already, as innovators do, you're already pushing the boundaries of what can be done and how to build. But then the market followed, and now it seems that there's some form of alignment. Still a little bit to kind of, some kinks to iron out, but we're getting to a place where this is now, we can call it an industry now. It's no longer a Saturday hobby. And what's the resilience you had to require, like to get from that point where you were building despite of the market to now being at the forefront of adoption by the market being in tune with you? What type of resilience do you have to have? Because these were not easy years, especially if you don't have revenue.
Yeah, this is a big question, right? So our revenue, and I don't mind saying it, was almost negative. Like one client, 2021, maybe 3 clients, 2022. So we survived. We did an ICO. Actually, it went good. People made money. I'm very happy about it. We have a very positive community. I don't mind saying, even our utility was guided at B2B, because we come from TradFi. Like our white paper, if you were to read our white paper, it was 42 pages back in 2020. There was no ChatGPT AI on it. It was pure know-how on securities, how it can be embedded into technology, what are the characteristics of security for it to thrive in technology. And it's a very well-detailed paper that even became part of thesis around the world on universities. That's the level of people that we were here. And I don't mind saying that. Actually, I'm super proud because we did everything by the book, right? Because we wanted to really solve a pain and a problem. Like that was the thing. So we did got financed by an ICO. And that actually let us move around. And secondly, we got a subsidy from the Spanish government because we did something very like high technical back in blockchain when countries were saying, I hate it, but I love it. Like the 2021, the euphoria of NFTs and whatnot. We created some proof of concept that went super well. So we always hustle. So you're saying like, yeah, why is the perseverance? We thought, and I still maintain the vision that we really wanted to pursue this because we saw the outcome, right? We knew that sooner or later it would hit. Like, we need to continue, technology driven. And basically, we started doing a lot of noise, which actually led us to our seed round because 2023, we started having clients. 2024 was a good year. 2025, super good. So we went through that whole next to the market, which is a funny thing. Instead of me capitalizing top of the market, challenging the players, we were very early, quite a few. Our generation, the biggest competitor is Securitize. They did super good, United States. They have a different opinion on how we produce, but let's say we're in the same almost generation. But the market itself started pushing us both to the same angle, kind of like nothing, education, bunch of blog posts, tweets, nothing. And then suddenly, boom, it became true for the big players. We validated the whole market and opened the doors for the rest. So yeah, that was a very hard years, but it also allowed us to maintain our structure very lean, very focused. Money, we never took anything for granted. Every euro was well spent. Our team super focused, kind of like we didn't give the best salaries, but we had the best culture, kind of like always giving back. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're still here, and I'm very thankful because we're still pursuing the same vision that brought us here in 2020.
I love that you touched on culture. Very few people understand how culture is essential for longevity and sustainability of a team, let alone a business. So talk me through about the culture. How did you find that this was important? And two, what does it look like in terms of an emerging technology in an emerging industry to be able to preserve culture or lead with culture as it stands?
Yeah. So I think you touched one of the key points of what Brickken is as a successful, because technology, even now today, you can, I don't know, some people will say, I can prompt whatever, right? I mean, it is true. It might be better than not, but we still need humans behind, right? Allegedly, someday we might not, but today we do. And in 2021, we had to fight against the big money, right? Because RWA was not getting funded. So the big developers were going elsewhere, not only in crypto, but also in fintech. That was a developer rockstar era, but they were charging some amounts that was absolutely insane. So the only thing we could do to fight that was provide a great environment where people will feel part of the team, something that we always do. Initiatives well taken, bonuses. If we receive some money or some funds, we distribute back. So we had to fight great money against great culture and great people. They feel confident that sometimes they can make more, but then here they feel that they are valued more, because it's true. Like the culture of a company is something that actually makes great companies. It's not technology. And some people say great founders. Yeah, but great founders have great teams behind. It's not a solo company, right? So one of the ideas that we always pursue internally was, how can we make every people feel comfortable on coming the next day? Right? How do we clean problems if they appear super fast? What is the status of everybody? And we created something that is quite, I would say, quite amazing, because we've only got, our turnover is like 5% in 6 years. We've barely had people leaving. We always got to take some drop decision. But right now we're thriving on this little club of people. We're 41 now. But everybody really pushes the boundaries and everything is well taken. And of course, we do a lot of team gatherings. We distribute a lot of things good happening to Brickken. We give back. We send our developers to events, not for business, but for them to educate culture-wise or learn good things. So we do little things to be able to fight the big money, which right now, if a Coinbase comes for my general counsel, let's put it like that, I'm done. Like, there's no way I can do that, right? So I'm still in my stage. So if I can recommend something to fellow heroes, is culture. It's qualitative currency, not quantitative. And qualitative sometimes is more worth for certain people. And if you manage to get that, then you can consider that you can create a great team around that, because it's not money what they want. It's something else that money can't buy, allegedly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Peter Drucker who said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I really love that, and how do you see this versus both the TradFi culture, which, I'm originally a TradFi guy. I'm very familiar with the cutthroat environments you can get yourself into. And then the opposing culture to that, which is crypto, which is this kind of I can do anything. Let's just, tokenize the world, etc. How do you find Brickken in that spectrum? And how do these two different cultures, whether influence or don't, the culture you've implemented and because I'm okay with the actions. I think that the small things compound, and I love that you go for these across the board. But culture is also strategic, right? And you have to be deliberate about what I want the culture of the company to look like. in the spectrum, or maybe even a third space that I'm not aware of between TradFi, DeFi, and what you guys built in Brickken? How do you compare where Brickken sits in the midst of all that?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question. We never asked that before. So my foundation is TradFi. M&A lawyer stood up going for a eating environment, right? Like either you perform or you get swallowed. Like super high level stress. You don't have a life. Then I go to the startup life and suddenly I can go home at 6 p.m. So I was like, no, what am I supposed to do at 6 p.m.? Like go home? So that broke my brain because it was just going through super high level stress to relaxing. But for me, relaxing was like, I need to do, like, you don't know, like you suddenly, your brain starts like, you need to go and perform at that level. And then I created a startup, right? And in the startup for us, something weird happened because we were trying to tackle capital markets, super TradFi, but at the 2021, 2022, it was very crypto degen oriented, right? And then we did an ICO. So we had to go full in exposure to crypto because we were funding ourselves to the ICO, our language, our branding. Everybody was dressing in t-shirts, a lot of jokes around in public. We had to maneuver to get that. And then suddenly, as the market started maturing, we started adopting our true frame, which was always TradFi. But along the way, we grabbed all the know-how, attitude, good thing, and we compounded it something different. And I think that is what Brickken has that is very unique and strategically. Like, sit me in front of a Fidelity or sit me in front of a Binance, I'll still perform the same because we know both angles, right? Because we've gone through the whole circle of alimenting ourselves or feeding ourselves from pure crypto degency to TradFi. So when now all these people on the exchanges are going to TradFi with us, like this is what we're very good at. We are a compound of both know-hows. We went deep into the trenches of both things, and right now this is what allowing us to be unique.
I love that. And I love that you're looking for that balance. Funny you say this because I started my career at Accenture where the days were super long. And then I got a job at a bank in Brazil. And the very first day I finished reading the system manual that I was going to oversee. And then the next day my manager came to me and said, you don't have to finish the thing that day. You can just leave at 6. And that broke my brain too, because I was like,
it is like that.
What? So that aside, we're looking into from now to 2030, 2035 now, many reports from traditional research houses like Citi and JP Morgan and McKinsey are coming out with some ridiculous trillion level numbers on the amount of the economy that will be tokenized. And whether they're right or wrong doesn't really mean too much right now, but it does mean that people will be investing towards that direction. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. How optimistic or realistic or pessimistic are you with the short, medium, long term in the tokenization space? Because there is this belief and this is the general belief that I hear at conferences in like Proof of Talk, that people are like, oh, everything's going to be tokenized. And then you tokenize everything. And then what? Like, what are you solving? Like tokenize everything is not a problem. It's not a solution. It's a marketing slogan. What are we doing with the technology? So in your analysis and in the work you're doing, what are the use cases with tokenization that are, in your opinion, most promising and that they can catapult the economy to the trillions that these research shops are starting to publish?
Yeah. Okay. So blunt and transparent, I think the misconception on tokenization was that it became a marketing slang and it was focused as a product of its own. Now I'm going to explain what this means. Because if you're a software engineer, this is an upgrade. This is Windows 10 to Windows 11. This is Android 4.6 to 4.7. And what I'm saying is that tokenization, it's a better system for capital or value to transact on. So what we're reality doing is updating the legacy systems where financial and capital matters were running in siloed containers and putting them on chain in a continuous flow. So the product itself is not the tokenization, it's the optimization. People who want to optimize receiving capital, cross borders, settlements, reconciliation, have automatizations, have metadata, have a lot of things that are good right now because this is an upgraded system. They go for this. And this is why the big players are going. They're not selling tokenized service. They are selling an optimized service from the legacy system that they have. So what I'm saying here is that the whole real estate getting tokenized, and they were just shooting blanks in the space because they didn't know. The specialists had not come here. And everybody was just like, oh, real estate is the one tokenizing. In reality, real estate is not the best item to tokenize. It's debt, bonds, whatever, private credit. Real estate is an asset, and the asset should be the tokenized underneath. But it's not because you tokenize it, suddenly something is going to get funded. Real estate that gets funded always, and it's a good product, will always get funded and be a good product with nice yield because of the real asset, not because of the technology. Technology will facilitate all around for you to manage that asset and reinvest it. Again, the product is not the real estate. The product is the optimization layer. Think about it. Before Salesforce was invented, or Hotspot or Pipedrive, CRM for sales was an Excel sheet. Horrible. The product was not the client or the target. The product was the shovels infrastructure that allowed you to have a sales funnel for you to target your end investor or your end client. Tokenization is the same thing. So everything that we're pursuing for years, the well-known people, companies, I'm not the only one, I'm not the only company here, is let's stop with the marketing that the product is a tokenization, because it is not. It is a system that is the product. You want to run on the highest tech, fastest rails, multi-currency, multi-worldwide, multi-investors, 24/7. You want to run on this system? Here it is. Boom. Now, your legacy product, you upgrade it and it runs from this. But we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just making an upgrade on something that already existed.
A quick word for the go-to-market leaders listening. Expanding your digital asset infrastructure into regulated high-growth markets takes more than just good tech. It requires local institutional trust. That is why we built BlockDrops Deep Dives. We partner with global providers to run bespoke market entry campaigns where we co-produce dedicated, highly executive episodes focused purely on your use cases. Then transform it into localized outbound assets for your sales team. To get your platform in front of local neobanks and tier 1 VASPs, email us at info@blockdropspodcast.xyz. Now, back to the show. It's interesting because we're recording this mid-June, right after the SpaceX IPO. And one of the things that happened during the SpaceX IPO, there was a lot of pre-IPO tokenized SpaceX shares being touted and sold and traded. And when the IPO actually happened, people realized that they did not have the underlying asset attached to the token in a break of trust and in a break of contract. And obviously, it was one of the most desirable IPOs in history of IPOs. And then that trust was broken, which means that the blockchains worked, the token was there, but the back-end process, as you were saying, was not. Nobody sourced the underlying assets to enable that transaction or those transactions to happen. So how do we fix that if we're going to tokenize everything? What else do we need to tokenize? Because this process clearly isn't working.
I agree. So with the Xbox situation, my opinion, because I have a really good relationship with them, and they're top-notch people. Like, they're not your average, oh yeah, I'm tokenizing whatever. No, they come from years of experience in banking and whatnot. My belief is that this got out of the rails. There was so much demand that the quantity they had access to superseded. I was with the Kraken in one of the events right now, Monaco. The VIP manager handling the big ticket, especially Asian. He said they were flooding millions per second. The IPO, I mean, we have to think about it. It was 1.7 trillion. How much liquid that was? Like they said, they raised 60 million in the market. There was going to be some heavy volume. My belief is they had access to something, but it just went absolutely off the rails because other parts, not tokenized, the normal brokers of everybody else, wanted access to that. So it was the most hot commodity the world has probably ever seen, right? I don't know. I'm going to compare it. I need some data there. But so the problem was there, and it is where I'm going to answer. And I wanted to explain myself before I answer. It was a liquidity and access situation. If the IPO would have been 100% tokenized out of the stock, that wouldn't have happened. Okay? Thank you for saying that. I got excited because here comes the second one. And it's, we are going on the legacy system and the tokenized system. And right now, the bridge is not pure, right? They converge, they hit, they converge, they hit. But now NASDAQ, which already paused it, they said, I'm going to apply for tokenized stock because I think my system is legacy, so I need to upgrade it, right? So I think the merge is going to slowly happen and then all stock would be, but we're not going to call it tokenized stock. It's just going to be stock running on the new system. And when that happens, it's not that you are going to be like, oh, I just want the tokenized version. No, even the stock people won't even know it's stock. It's tokenized stock. So again, it's just an upgrade system that once we're doing, there's going to be failures, there's going to be wins, it's going to mutate. Some people will hate it, some people will love it. But the fusion is happening, right? I mean, right now, the banks, there's like, I don't know, 40 banks right now with the tokenized deposits that came out last week saying those guys are thinking that they're going to start offering bank accounts or events in a tokenized version, probably stablecoins duality, but they're also going to run the same money that they always run because for them, as a black box moving dollars across the globe without the SWIFT system, it became cheap and free. So obviously they want to do with tokenized stock. It's a reduction of fees. And they're not going to tell, now you're going to just tokenize euros. No, the same rails as the bank account. You go in, you log in, you plug in, you transfer. But on the back, they will move everything technology free, seamless. Yeah, that's the word. That's my perception.
Yeah, no, I love the vision. And I like that this is kind of, the tech is actually bleeding into the companies rather than the companies going into the technology, because that's where the processes are, right? You mentioned well about there's no difference between a tokenized stock and a stock once NASDAQ is running on chain. But that also means that all their processes to actually issue the stock in the first place can now be documented, audited on the blockchain. They don't have to do something on a centralized system and then hash it and then put it on a token. They can run the entire process end to end with full auditability to the degree of transparency that they might want to have, because now we have a sliding scale with selective disclosure and there's plenty of other things to go around.
Yes.
But the good thing is that we're not talking the asset class alone. We're talking about the process, the business process, which can now be fully transparent or not. Selective disclosure plays a part. But then we start to going into the agentic economy that is not just pushing transactions on the chain, but also managing or helping to manage the entire asset class lifecycle inside those companies and on chain. That's a completely new level of efficiency. And then when you bring this back into the real economy, we're talking about automated invoicing in ways we've never seen, fractionalized payments, lending and borrowing your own credit score for your supply chain with self-liquidating assets. Like there's the degree of penetration of the data, and I'm a data guy, so I always go there, will be incredible because now you have traceability, transparency, and selective disclosure that every participant on the chain can benefit from, but also the regulators. Because the big problem is the regulators have no access to the banking and capital market systems unless it's 45 days after the fact, and then damage is done. Right. So I wholeheartedly subscribe to your vision, and I'm one pushing for that entirely if I can.
This is what we call here agentic capital market. And the best runner of information is AI on a fully decentralized, because they can capture all information without connecting to the gateway API, which tells you the entrance. So the future, how we see it at Brickken, pure agentic, X402. Like everybody's preparing themselves for agents, and agents don't run off chain because they can never do the bank SOC to pay or the credit card. That's all inventions around something that natively on blockchain runs at the speed and efficiency nobody has ever seen. And that's where we get it. That's where we hit it right away. So I completely agree with you, Mauricio, what you were saying before. The level of efficiency we're about to to go into anything financial, it's going to accelerate liquidity and movement of capital at a speed that I don't even know what's going to happen. Right now we have a 1.7 trillion. I think this is just the beginning of a new thing, which is super capitalistic, yes, but also very opportunistic, because people can now have access to liquidity that they never had before with a simple call or offering, because now the whole liquidity moves at a speed that they can gather to.
This is maybe not opposed, but somewhat conflicting with the original crypto ethos, which is let's push value to the edges, right? That was the whole premise of decentralization, is to separate money from state and allow value to accrue at the edges. This was potentially true for the network itself with the validators and the miners. But in the application layer, what we've seen, and maybe this is transitional between where we were and this vision you just put forth, is the most successful businesses in crypto right now are all centralized businesses.
Yes.
They built on decentralized infrastructure, but they are centralized. Maybe with the exception of Uniswap and Aave, but you may find, different opinions in the market, whether they're centralized or not, but maybe them as a decentralized proposition, but everybody else, right? You got Coinbase, Binance, all the CXs. You got Circle and Tether.
Yeah, of course.
Tether is arguably the most profitable company per employee in history. I mean, profits.
100%.
And everything else then follows. So how do we reconcile that? How do we build a better market, more efficient market, more liquid market, but allow others that have not had yet the access that we've had as we build and as we test and as we take advantage of our privileged circumstances, to allow more people to come on board and now I understand. And I can see a case for stable coins in emerging markets to provide better, cheaper access to the US dollar, but that's also contaminating a little bit of the local economy with a foreign currency, and I wrote extensively about that. But other than that, what are the things that crypto as an industry can do to bring more, and I hate the term, but I'll use it, financial inclusion to the world?
I completely understand where you're going, because back in the beginning, it was a thing that I'm going to blame myself. I thought the perspective was wrong, and please, no, I'm going to explain. Don't go throw me some hate DMs. I believe in decentralization, but I don't believe in decentralized governance. I believe in decentralized access. And we're going to talk about the Aave, right? Aave has a huge DAO. Probably one of the few that still work, because all the DAO experiments on governments are failing. So the governance layer, when you spread it across, there's very people who like to be owner or taken into consideration, or proposals. Proposals, sometimes when you have a company, it needs to be executed on the spot, because if not, the risk and aversion from not acting can be worse. So we saw some things that were not, but Aave provided access to the greatest collateralized market, as long as many others. So I think decentralization is still very much true. Inclusion is very much true, but it's not at the business level, right? The business will be owned by few, but they will provide a product that various can engage, be in stable coins for third world countries. There's a lot of tokenization happening in Africa for inclusion, because these entities don't have access to the same liquidity opportunities that tier 1 countries have. And the tier 1 countries or banks, they're not going to go down to Africa because of the risk aversion, cultural, government. They have all these things, the compliance department that says, absolutely do not enter there, because we don't play with that. But there's an opportunity for elsewhere to understand that there's an opportunity in the decentralized way. And we're seeing that in Latin America. We're seeing that in emerging markets, Southeast Asia, where the decentralization factor, it's very much working. It's not the company that got decentralized and owned by the thousand. It is that the company owned by a few provided access to the thousands. And that's where we're thriving. I think the misconception on decentralization was that we thought it was going to be at the top, but it was always at the bottom. It was always an access and of providing opportunity. So that is what I think, of course. And then somebody will say, no, it was always at the top. But hey, I'm just telling you the data, like you will said, all thriving companies, they provide a mass product, but at the top, it's corporate like.
No, I understand the circumstance. I just wanted to understand your point of view on that. And there's also the dichotomy between economies of scale and network effects.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
How do you achieve network effects if you can't achieve economies of scale? And how do you distribute something that isn't accumulating either? So these are, I think crypto as an industry, and I will want to hear your perspective on it, needs to find its one problem to solve and then go solve it. So in your opinion, as an industry, what would be that one problem that crypto needs to solve right now and then move on, go be an industry?
Yeah. So I'm going to stay with what we do, which is not RWA. It's value movement. Because right now it's very siloed, like bank transfers, moving, guys, you still go into silo and they will say now it's getting cheaper with the fees and everything. But you still governed by an entity that has your money under certain conditions. They go around, they play with your money, they make way more money, and they give you peanuts. Now I get to play at the same level, right? Because if I go to Aave with my collateralized ETH, I can do a lot of things that I can get some revenue on my top. So the problem itself, it's not so much as a problem kind of like, oh, okay, I'm going to cure world hunger, because it's not the case. It's more like an upgrade. It's just a new system. So I think there was a lot of initiatives around it that were never meant to be. Like NFT, metaverse were experiments, in my opinion. No disregard to the great technology and incentives, because from there, a lot of things got learned. There was a lot of things about trustability for shipping, which is like you have 10 different intermediaries in the middle. You're not going to grade the whole chain. Get out of here. There was traceability in food. There was a lot of things that blockchain as a layer were trying to solve, but it was just grabbing a technology that was made never for that. I mean, if we go to P2P Bitcoin, it was a peer-to-peer transfer of value. And the blockchain is a ledger. Accounting wise, it's a ledger. So what better thing than to really choose for where it was made? If it's a public ledger that allows for you to see transactions between two parties, how the value moves and all of these things, maybe it was always made for what it was made for finance, for banking. So I don't believe we are truly necessarily solving a problem. I think we're optimizing a solution that in the end will give more accessibility and more possibility to the end user. Kind of like, did Uber solve a problem? No, it optimized a need because taxis were painful. And now with the app, I have it. Was there really a problem? No, because I could still go to the street and grab the taxi. So it was an upgrade. And I think not everything needs to be a problem solver. Some upgrades by default already managed to create new solutions that we never thought of. And it's like, okay, I'll get the upgrade because it's better. And I think blockchain it's a humongous upgrade.
Got you. In terms of your own personal microcosm, how do you balance working in an industry that doesn't stop, right? A tweet on a Saturday can ruin your Sunday, as we've seen.
Yeah.
But how do you keep yourself healthy, sane, balanced? Because I know you're implementing this culture in Brickken, and that's got to reflect somehow in how you handle your own personal circumstances. So do you have any recipes to share with the audience, whether that is achievable or not, and what do you do for yourself in that respect?
Yeah. So this is a very hard question because we are TradFi. So let's say from 9 to 6, we start product, we talk to clients, and then from 24 hours, we also have our token. And crypto, unfortunately, became very toxic, like stupidly toxic. I've never been inside an IPO or stock company or tweet stocks or anything where they just go and hunt you, right? And somehow it happened. So the only rule that we have in the company is nobody can talk in our Telegram group. Nobody can engage with our Twitter. We secluded the crypto environment for our own employees. Our employees, they go focus on the traffic. We do have people working just on crypto and they don't even engage. I engage a lot because I got used to it. Kind of like I started in 2021, but it's very dangerous and very exhausting, right? And the only thing you can do is how do you disconnect? And honestly, for me, walking my dogs, playing video games, reading a book, doing random things where I go without a phone works because this industry, it's highly demanding. I think a lot of the founders out there, they will be tagged as scammers because the token didn't perform or the company. But in the end, I think they all should someday tell the story because I have absolutely zero doubts that many got absolutely burned, even though they did their best. And when you have a B2B company, let's say in Web2, your investors, they might kill you, but that's 3, 4, 5 people, right? They're like, okay, done. I don't want to see you ever again. But you go your own way. When you have a crypto and then suddenly 10,000, 20,000 start attacking you, that's a completely different story. So my opinion is that crypto needs to mature from an investment point of view. Like, we need to stop thinking that everything is back because the token goes down or goes up. In stocks happen the same. Unfortunately, the performance of the company is not linked as in stocks. This is pure speculation, which is gambling. This is why a lot of people went into prediction markets. That's why a lot of things are changing now. So I don't have an answer or something, but the only thing is you need to find what gets you out of that system. Like, what if it's swimming? Make sure you go swim, because if not, you fall back into the whole trap of having to kind of like optimize these people, but run a business. And then the two things that start expanding so bad that I know people that are close to me that they decided to like not even entrepreneur again, like not even found again. But it was because it's so much that if they would have tried here, probably like many founders in crypto will absolutely kill it and be successful founders in Web2 just because of how crazy they want to go for something, how many things they have to know, markets, movement, liquidity. Man. There's so much know-how that I think this is a little like shout out to all the founders that have not trained it, because they deserve a lot of respect.
Absolutely. As we wrap up our allotted slot, I want to reward the listeners that stay with us this far. And what would you like them to take away from our conversation today?
Yeah, I would like to just establish like what everything as an industry is trying to accomplish. And I think there's always going to be ups and downs, but let's always keep with the good news, right? It's easy to fall trap to all the noise, because itself is what we like, to gauge into like all these. Yeah. But in reality, if we look at the positive things, this year alone has been the most positive for crypto, not for Bitcoin, not for value, but countries' adoption, banks, testing, real currency. Like, if you go underneath the noise, then you will see the peace and calmness that all the big players are actually embedded themselves and building on top. So take a dive into that. Forget about the top. The noise will always be in every single industry, in everything. But if you look down, then I think you will come out knowing that the world is going to tokenize itself, not because of tokenization, but because the industries, the blockchain and everything we're building will be the next upgrade. And I have absolutely zero doubts on it. And hopefully I'm not wrong. But if I'm wrong, then I'll step a DM and say you're wrong. And then I'll say, fine. But I have absolutely zero doubts that we're seeing a new world with AI, blockchain, maybe quantum in the future is going to create something. I think we just have to enjoy the road of what technology is bringing to us every day. And then we can just close Twitter and go watch a movie.
The journey is the destination. I love that. Edwin, thanks so much for spending time with us. Loved learning more about you. And hopefully next time we go to the same event, we'll see each other and say, hey, how are you?
Yes. Now we know each other. Yes, of course. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yay! Shout out to Edwin for chatting with us today. Don't forget to leave a review for BlockDrops in your streaming platform of choice, and learn all about the show at blockdropspodcast.xyz. This is all for today. Stay rare, stay weird, LFG.